up for us. Amen. Lord, we just pray right now in this rock burning record ceremony that each one of these artists, Lord, will come to know you. And Lord, let this be done for your glory in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Rock music has always been considered the devil's music, but today it's not Elvis's swiveling pelvis that outrages many in the US, but the overt Satanism of black metal and death metal bands like Slayer, Venom, King Diamond, and Deicide. Deicide are the most extreme proponents of the death metal music, which is causing a furore in the USA. The lyrics openly celebrate Satanism, human sacrifice, and suicide. Christian fundamentalists are convinced that rock music is directly to blame for a rising tide of satanic murders, rapes, and suicides. With his roadshow, Why Not Rock, Reverend Steve Peters pins the troubles of America on music and, along with his wife Julie, campaigns for the censorship of explicit lyrics.
And our prayer for you tonight is just to keep your hearts and minds open. We're not here to tell you what you can and cannot listen to. We don't want to do that. That's not our goal.
This song is about raping a corpse. Do you think this song could have an influence on an unstable teenager? And before you answer that question negatively, there are 15, 16, and 17-year-old kids who are on death row today who executed someone, who murdered someone, and with the interviews they found that the first way they were introduced to Satanism was through their rock music. Another big way is...
The question I want to ask the rock music industry is why, all of a sudden, did all the issues that so many of the bands talk about, why do all of them have to be on the dark side, the negative side, the depressing side? Why don't they have songs out about being true to your school? Why don't they have songs out about eating your Brussels sprouts? Why don't they have songs out about something else? Why does it have to, be about all these terrible issues? Well, because they know it's going to shock and they know it's going to sell.
Oblivious! Believe that!
So is Deicide Satanism just a gimmick to sell more records? What's the purpose of the band?
To create the most evilest music and to gain entrance into the seven gates of hell.
So a concert is an act of worship for you?
Not exactly. It's a focal point to express my Satanism.
Do you believe in demonic possession?
Of course.
Are you possessed?
Of course. Demonic possession to me is when you come to a certain point when there's no turning back and your body is possessed and there's no turning back and there's no way you can turn back.
Is your music harmful? Harmful?
Harmful. It depends on who's listening to it. I don't find it harmful to myself. The people that listen to it, I don't see any harm happening to them yet.
I love you, and I love you, and that's how it should be. God loves you, and I love you,
Freedom Village, USA was set up to deal with the alleged victims of satanically inspired rock music. It's the end of the line for many troubled teenagers. Parents, probation officers and pastors send rock music junkies here for a year-long stretch of deprogramming. Taking the first steps on the road to repentance, Cheryl is typical of the kids at Freedom Village. She's been sent here by her mother, a born-again Christian.
Rock music played a pretty big role in my life because it just totally encouraged the whole situation. Seances, the Ouija board, the Dungeons and Dragons, the prayers, everything was based around the music, the type music. Like Ozzy Osbourne, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Metallica, just all those songs that I used to listen to a couple of years before started coming back in my mind, just started playing on my mind. And, you know, you can't escape when that music and those words are in your head. You just can't escape it.
Most of you kids are here because you couldn't keep things out of your life, or couldn't keep things out of one of the holes in your head or the holes in your body that were going to hurt you. You lived like the devil because of the things that he put into your mind. The bottom line is he's found a tremendous vehicle to get his ideas into one of the holes in your body, namely your ears, and that's through music. You see, these
Freedom Village is the brainchild of Pastor Fletcher A. Brothers. For 10 years, he's been saving the rock-tortured souls of American teenagers.
There's kids who tell their parents, you know, you take my music away, I'll kill you. My music's more important to me than you. I mean, you know, sure it's addicting, sure it's consuming. That's the thing. You know, there's always been music, there's always been fans, there's always been fads, but there was other things, okay? Today, a kid lives for their music. They identify with a group. They wear the costume of that group. They wear the tattoo of that group. I mean, they'll eat, sleep, and drink that group. Ozzy's my man. I mean, they identify so tightly with that individual that individual begins to make their beliefs. You see, music is a message. You pump the message into their mind long enough, it'll give them their beliefs. Their beliefs will become their convictions, and their actions will follow their convictions.
Now I live and breathe in freedom with each breath of life I take.
Twice daily, nearly 40 radio and TV stations carry Freedom Village's message right across America. Today, there are 120 teenagers from the age of 13 living on campus. The regime is tough. Each day begins at 6 a.m. with prayers. Girls must wear skirts and attend homemaking classes, whilst the boys are taught carpentry and have manhood lessons. Bible classes are a central part of the curriculum. Pop music is forbidden, and the TV is only switched on Sundays.
Amen. You forgive me for being proud of these kids, would you? I love them. They're great. They are what this thing is all about. Obviously, we have breakup of homes. Okay, we have a deterioration of the moral values. It's fashionable now to drop out of school and what have you, okay? But, yes, does rock music fuel the fire? The answer is absolutely.
Do you advocate legislation that would censor rock music?
Well, let me answer that with this. Steve, there is censorship. There is censorship. I don't advocate censorship. I advocate tightening down a little bit the censorship that we already have, okay? Now, I have lyrics right here, 4-letter words, okay? And you can't read them. You can't read them on this program, and you know you can't. Why? Because you'd be out of job.
It would be easy to dismiss the Christian fundamentalist opponents of rock as extremists, but here in the USA, they have substantial mainstream support. An influential group of concerned parents, headed by the wives of Secretary of State James Baker and presidential candidate Albert Gore, have successfully campaigned to get the record industry to put warning stickers like these on some albums. And they even managed to make rock music the subject of a Senate hearing.
The material we're concerned about cannot be compared with Louie Louie, Cole Porter, Billie Holiday, etc. Cole Porter's The Birds Do It, The Bees Do It, can hardly be compared with Wasp, I-F-U-C-K, Like a Beast. The proliferation of songs glorifying rape, sadomasochism, incest, the occult, and suicide by a growing number of bands illustrates this escalating trend that is alarming. Some have suggested...
Washington wives, Susan Baker and Tipper Gore, set up the Parents Music Resource Center, or PMRC, because, they claimed, they were so shocked by the content of some pop songs. Their aim? To warn other parents about the danger music poses to the youth of America.
Recently, Shana Easton Sugar Walls, which is really a fairly graphic song about female genital arousal, has been on the charts and is played 10 to 12 times a day.
I can show you things you never see. I can make you never wanna fall in love again. Come spend the night inside my sugar walls.
I bought the Purple Rain album for our 11-year-old. And I didn't know that Darling Nikki was on it, and I felt that it was inappropriate for her and her 8- and 6-year-old sister to hear a song describing a girl masturbating in a hotel lobby with a magazine. I had no warning. In fact, all I knew was from that Prince was the new creative teen idol on the scene and had just received a Grammy Award. So I would have appreciated it if I had known that before purchase.
John, thank you very much.
But the rock musicians themselves were under no illusions about the threat the PMRC and their warning stickers posed to music. John Denver was the first to express outrage at the proposals.
Mr. Chairman, the suppression of a people, of a society, begins, in my mind, with the censorship of the written or spoken word. It was so in Nazi Germany. It is so in many places today where those in power are afraid of the consequences of an informed and educated people. My song, Rocky Mountain High, was banned from many radio stations as a drug-related song. This was obviously done by people who'd never seen or been to the Rocky Mountains. And I'll be very clear that I'm strongly opposed to censorship of any kind in our society or anywhere else in the world.
Next on the witness stand was heavy metal singer Dee Snider. His band, Twisted Sister, were specifically targeted during the hearing for alleged violent lyrical content.
Are you listening to me? What do you want to do with your life? I want to rock.
I'd like to tell the committee a little bit about myself. I'm 30 years old. I'm married. I have a 3-year-old son. I was born and raised a Christian, and I still adhere to those principles. Believe it or not, I do not drink, I do not smoke, and I do not do drugs. I pride myself on writing songs that are consistent with my above-mentioned beliefs. The video for We're Not Going to Take It was simply meant to be a cartoon with human actors playing variations on the Roadrunner Wile E. Coyote theme. It strikes me that the PMRC may have confused our video presentation for this song with the meaning of the lyrics. Parents can thank the PMRC for reminding them that there is no substitute for parental guidance, but that is where the PMRC's job ends.
So why did the recording industry give in to the demands of the PMRC and agree to sticker records when the artists themselves expressed such strong opposition to what they see as the beginnings of censorship?
During that time, the industry was facing some 18 states trying to pass laws which would mandate the use of a parental advisory logo, but not the handsome little black and white one that we had been using voluntarily, but rather a large fluorescent sticker that had a list of sins ranging from bestiality and necrophilia to alcoholism and adultery. We defeated the legislation in all 18 states, but we're told time and time again by those state legislators that if they didn't feel the voluntary standard parental advisory logo was working and working well, that they would come back with their state laws and they would press for passage of those state laws.
So how come the censors have got this far? Why is the recording industry being blamed for antisocial behavior?
Because the problems that face our youth today seem so insurmountable, be it AIDS or teenage suicide or drug abuse, teen pregnancy, what have you, because those problems are so difficult to address and to begin to solve that people rather are looking for an easy way out and are looking for a scapegoat. And they are blaming rock music and they're blaming the arts. And that's unfortunate.
Attempts to sticker and censor rock musicians have led to howls of outrage from anti-censorship groups. Suzanne Stefanak heads one such organization in San Francisco.
I think the fact that the major labels are imposing labeling on some of their artists is fairly laughable. The criterion used are totally arbitrary. I think they're of no use to the parents if that's who they're aiming them at. And in many cases, they serve as buying incentives for children who want to listen to something that their parents wish they wouldn't.
But if you're opposed to labeling, but surely labeling a record isn't censorship.
Labeling is censorship because many of the major distributors have already said that they will not carry any albums that have a label that might be considered questionable. And if there is no distribution for the album, then the record labels aren't going to let them, the artists record what they like. And so there is, in fact, a chilling effect and censorship.
To add weight to their case, the opponents of rock have searched small-town America for individuals with powerful and emotive stories, which have provided the Christian fundamentalists with some of their most potent propaganda. When he was 16, John Tanner was an average high school student with a passion for Black Sabbath. One day he had a row with his girlfriend over the phone. After she hung up on him, he went to his room, put a shotgun to his head, and fired.
All the days that I shot myself, I skipped out of school and I just pretty much sat at my room all day and listened to, you know, Black Sabbath and Grand Funk and, you know, I'd work myself into a state of mind that, you know, I was taking everything as really depressing. And that evening, about 4:30 or so, got in an argument with my girlfriend on the phone, and then I figured, that was it, and went upstairs and just grabbed my shotgun and put it up under my jaw and said, "Oh God, I'm coming home," and hit the trigger. I'd never considered suicide, you know, till I was like about 15 and really started getting into rock and roll. And, you know, songs like Killing Yourself to Live and stuff had just really, you know, I was taking all this to heart really much. I guess, I'd have to say that they did, you know, the words and stuff did have a big influence on me. And, you know, like I said, too, you know, each person has control of their own, what they let influence them, but at that time in my life, I was totally committed to listening to Black Sabbath, and I really got off to them a lot.
So when the kid mutilates himself, or murders, or rapes, or takes drugs, and then says, it was rock music that made me do it, is it not a case to be answered?
No, that poor kid had tremendous problems before, during, and after he was listening to rock music. I do not believe that a record and a record alone can force young people to do some of the things that rock music in our industry is being blamed for today. Again, I think people are looking for scapegoats. You know, if your kid is sitting in his room listening to the same record over and over for 8 hours, I don't care what that record is, you might want to think about knocking on the door and saying, Johnny, is everything okay in there?
Music can certainly influence our mood, enhance happiness or deepen sadness. But does the music actually create the mood? And is it directly responsible for actions related to that mood? Does music use us, or do we use the music?
Look at me, Satan's child, for me defiled. Brought to life through satanic fire, raised in hell to live on earth.
Jim Hardy is 20 years old. He's serving a life sentence without parole for murder. On the night of December the 6th, 1987, Jim drove to the woods with two school friends. There they met their victim, another classmate, Stephen Newberry. Using baseball bats, they beat Stephen to death and then dumped his body into a water cistern. A few months later, the American media flocked to Jim's trial, as the murder was linked by many to his involvement with Satanism and heavy metal music.
We had planned it before, and we'd attempted to carry it out before, but we just lose the heart, or try it another time and lose the heart again. And finally this night, I guess all the failures in the past kind of gave strength to do it this time. That night, we played some Venom on the way there, just to get us in the mood, I guess you could say. We let the music soup us up, or give us the courage to do it. We allow the music to just carry us on through with the act. So if we were looking for something to justify what we were doing, or to justify the way we were acting, any of the lyrics would suggest something to us. We looked for those things. We looked for the lyrics that would justify what we were doing.
Heavy metal was the chosen soundtrack for the death of Stephen Newberry. But does Jim really believe that it was the heavy metal music that drove him to murder in the first place?
That's a cop-out to me. I really feel like that's a cop-out. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. That's just like some cattle roper getting drunk at the bar and find out his old lady's cheating on him and go out and kill up 3 or 4 people. People are going to want to say, well, did country music make you kill that guy? I think that's just kind of a cop-out. Sure, it might have given us the heart to do it, but it didn't cause us to do it. And I think that's the important question.
It might be hard to believe that music can drive a teenager to commit suicide or even murder, but opponents of rock on both sides of the Atlantic are adamant and are willing to go to extraordinary lengths to prove their case. They claim that musicians are deliberately trying to lure their fans into evil by the use of hidden messages.
In order to gain satanic power, to have power over people, then you do things in reverse. You walk backwards, you talk backwards, you pray backwards, you say the Lord's Prayer backwards, and you play phonographic records backwards.
Alex Maloney, an evangelist from Burton-on-Trent, is convinced that teenagers are being brainwashed by the recording industry. In an attempt to save the souls of local heavy metal fans, Alex called a public meeting in which he hoped to expose the sinister practice of backmasking. Having scoured the pop charts for hidden backward messages, Alex played his first discovery, Prince's Darling Nikki, to the audience. Forward, it sounded like an unintelligible scramble.
But when it's reversed, I won't need to tell you the message on there because it's clear as I'm speaking to you now. Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? I'm fine, so fine, because I know that the Lord is coming soon. Which Lord is it that Prince refers to? Is it the Lord Jesus Christ, or is it the Lord Satan?
Alex first heard about backmasking from Christian fundamentalists in the USA. Now, all his spare time is spent searching for the hidden messages, using a specially adapted record player.
What's he saying there? Fun to smoke marijuana. That doesn't sound to me very much like it's fun to smoke marijuana. That sounds to me like marijuana. That's what it sounds like.
What they've used is pure backward masking. Where we were listening to Prince, and that was a definite, absolute backward mass message. When you listen to that piece forward, it actually sounds garbled in its forward.
What is it's
on this particular piece? It's behind the chorus of Another One Bites the Dust, and it is specifically placed behind the actual words.
Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. Ow! Another one bites the dust. Hey, hey! Another one bites the dust.
Alex then tried to persuade his audience that they could hear the words, "It's fun to smoke marijuana." But some of the fans were not totally convinced.
Never in all my life have I heard so much rubbish and drivel from what you said tonight. You have absolutely no argument at all, and you can't stand there and preach against me, my friends, right? And it's just rubbish. What you're saying is just, there's no basis for it at all. I've been in this music for a long time. Am I a devil worshipper? If I was a devil worshipper, I would not come into this place tonight.
But when they are using techniques like backward masking, where people are not aware of the messages, are you not mad at that? That they should try to affect you without your say-so?
No one's trying to affect me. Nothing's affected me. I go out and buy records that I like, right? I mean, who in their right mind would go out and spend 10 quid on an album to play it backwards? Come on.
The long-debated question of subliminal and backmasked messages in heavy metal music was finally put to the test in the American courts last year. CBS Records and the band Judas Priest were accused of causing the suicides of 2 young men through the use of subliminal messages. One of the boys lived long enough to tell others that the music of Judas Priest had made him do it. James Vance and Ray Belknap's friendship seemed based on their similar lifestyles. Both had problems with school and work, and both used drugs. 2 days before Christmas in 1985, Ray gave James an early Christmas present, the Judas Priest album, Stained Class. Locked in Belknap's bedroom, the two teenagers played the album over and over again.
They began listening to the music repeatedly. They had some favorite songs. They began to sing along with some of the lyrics in the music, which emphasized suicide as a valid alternative for life's problems.
I can't find the words I'm it's better by you.
They knew they were going to go shoot themselves. They looked at each other, and he said, let's see what's next, and let's do it.
After several hours, the two began destroying the bedroom. And when Ray's mother started pounding on the door, Ray grabbed his sawn-off shotgun and jumped out the bedroom window. James followed. They ran down the street and a few minutes later found themselves in the playground of a churchyard. Ray stood on the merry-go-round and wedged the muzzle of the gun under his chin.
Ray shot himself first, and James tells of hearing Ray's body thump on the ground. He had second thoughts that he had things to live for, but he felt compelled to pull the trigger. And he began chanting, do it, do it, do it, and he did it. And he pulled the trigger.
To the best of your knowledge today, what is the cause of James shooting himself?
I would say it was him listening to the Judas Priest heavy metal music.
We've never put subliminal messages on any album, and this album in question was 14 years old. We couldn't even afford our lunch when we did this album, so I mean, we couldn't afford the sophisticated equipment that they say we needed to put this the way they said that we put these messages on the album was, even today's, the technology you would need to use, it's impossible.
All right, court is now in session.
The case against Judas Priest rested on proving that the words "do it" were hidden in the track "Better by You, Better Than Me," and that they were placed there with the specific intent of suggesting suicide to the listener.
Better by you, better than me. You can say what I can't see. You can tell them what I want it to be.
Using sophisticated technology, audio experts isolated and analysed the words "do it." The result was played to the court.
I heard absolutely nothing. I had excellent hearing. I heard "do it" after, but the second time it was played through.
I heard something that I could...
You couldn't make it out?
Not if I hadn't been told before what it was supposed to say.
In court, lead singer Rob Halford claimed that the "do it" sound heard by the prosecution was a breathing technique he uses to personalise his songs. This involves a heavy breath at the end of each phrase. He was called upon to demonstrate this to the judge.
I think I get the right key. It goes, better than you, better than me. You can say what I can see.
CBS Records brought in their own experts to explain Halford's singing technique.
It's hard to describe them. I would describe them as expressive grunts which happen in between the vocal lines. It's all part of Rob's performance of the song as a lead vocalist.
Better by you, better than me. You can tell what I want it to be.
Is that an unusual thing for a singer to do?
No, not at all. Elvis Presley made a career out of it.
It could have been created by somebody who had the ability to create something in order to do something to somebody or have an effect on somebody. It surely would have had an effect on many more people.
They'd have been dropping like flies all around the world.
From that point to this, and as somebody said, if we're going to put subliminal content on there, even if we had the ability to do so in 1978,
we would have just said, hey, you know, buy more records or something like that.
Judas Priest were also accused of putting backward messages on the track Beyond the Realms of Death. The song was computer analysed and played backwards by the prosecution. They claimed that the message, "Try suicide," was revealed.
They could hear the words, "Try suicide," which sounded like, oh, no. That was about as close as they could get. So myself and Ken went into a studio with stained glass album, and we played side one backwards at normal speed, unedited. Within 30 seconds, we found "Hey Ma, my chair's broken." We found "It's so fishy, personally I'll own it." We found other messages, didn't we?
I asked her to get me a peppermint ash, to get one. There's stuff to do with love. But we didn't find anything to do with suicide or devilish things.
So what we'll hear first is I asked for a peppermint, I asked for her to get one.
Halford's demonstration of the flute messages proved to be the final straw. The prosecution's case collapsed. The judge ruled that Judas Priest were not to blame for the suicides of James Vance and Ray Belknap. He said that he did hear the hidden messages, such as "Do It" on the record, but he also ruled it was a chance combination of sounds and not an intentional subliminal command.
Did it ever cross your mind that you might be in any way, however small, responsible for their death?
Not one way whatsoever. I never spoke to their parents at all. The reason is I have no sympathy for their parents. They were responsible for the way their children had grown up. And I think that, if you've got a problem and a tragedy occurs like that, you've got to look a little bit closer to home and not try and pin the problem on music. You might be pin it on the social structure of America and the way that, the kids have been brought up, but not try and pin it on music.
But the Judas Priest trial is not the end of the story. Next in the firing line is British heavy metal singer Ozzy Osbourne.
Wine is fine, but when there's weather, suicide is nowhere there. Take a bath and drown your sorrow, then it's hard to wake tomorrow.
Ozzy says his song, Suicide Solution, is about the death of a friend through alcoholism. But American lawyers have a different interpretation.
We know of at least 15 or 16 cases where there has been suicide connected to Ozzy Osbourne's music. Most of it related to the song Suicide Solution. We're talking about situations where young men, usually boys, incidentally, are listening to the tape on a Walkman type or stereo with the earphones in and shooting their brains out.
Fitzgerald, Georgia, is a small town in the southern Bible Belt. Tom Waller has lived here all his life. For the past 4 years, he has been struggling to make sense of his son's death. Michael Waller shot himself in front of 3 friends at a party 2 months before his 17th birthday. Mr. Waller blames the suicide on Ozzy Osbourne for 2 reasons. Firstly, he believes that a chance conversation with Michael following a drink driving offence provided a clue to his son's state of mind.
He said to me, "Well, Pop, I think old Oz has the solution." And I turned to him and said, "Well, son, I don't know who has the solution, but I'm sure together we'll work it out." And he turned to me a second time and plainly stated to me, he says, "Well, Pop, I think old Oz has the solution."
The second piece of evidence only came to light when Tom Waller cleared out his son's truck. He found an Ozzy Osbourne tape in the cassette player.
The song that he had played last was Ozzy Osbourne's Suicide Solution. And then, just like somebody had turned a very bright light on me, I realized what he had said to me 10 days, 2 weeks earlier, actually, that old Oz has the solution. And I realized where he had gotten out here to commit suicide.
It might not seem much to go on, but Ben Mills, a local attorney, has agreed to take up the Waller case. As a result, Ozzy Osbourne and CBS Records are due to stand trial later this year. Mills thinks that the Wallers are in with a good chance of winning, despite the much publicised failure of the Judas Priest case.
You have much stronger evidence. In the Judas Priest case, the only words they had were the words, "do it." Here we have a direct exhortation of a song called Suicide Solution that says, suicide is the only way out. Don't you know what it's all about? In addition, in the Blizzard of Oz version of the tape, there is an interlude. And through certain testing and investigation through the years, it has been ascertained that there are words spoken on the interlude which are not readily intelligible. You hear something, but you don't know what's being said. We believe those words say, why try, get the gun and try it, shoot, shoot, shoot. We think that's wrong. We think that's torturous. We don't think it should be permitted.
I think that Ozzy Osbourne and his Suicide Solution would have to be blamed, that he would have to be the one that would be the, what can only be described as the trigger to the gun that caused the death.
This year, a jury will decide whether Michael Waller's death was caused by the record's Suicide Solution. If the Wallers succeed, they stand to win up to $9 million from CBS Records. But the implications for rock music are more than just financial.
In this day and age, in this free world, and particularly of artistic freedom, should it even cross your mind? I'm not saying, condoning going out writing violent albums and lyrics, but have you really got to analyse everything you write and everything that you produce as an artist? Be it before you put pencil to paper, or a journalist like yourself, have you really got to analyse it and think, is there something in there that one warped or two warped minds out there might react to in the whole world, Even in a good novel, there is going to be violence in there, or there's going to be things in there that the author shouldn't really have to think, oh, should I put that or not, Otherwise, artistic freedom's out the window. It's gone for good, it's gone completely.
What is this? Is this not America? This is not China. This is not Russia. This is not the place where they brought down the walls. This is America. We have the right to say what we want to say. We have the right to do what we want to do. And what I do in my house, you might not do in your house. So what I do in my house is my business. And the simple fact of it all is that we are bonded by the First Amendment. We have the freedom of expression. We have the freedom of choice. And you, Chinese, black, green, purple, Jew, you have the right to listen to whoever you want to, and even the Two Live Crew.
The attack on heavy metal music is just a small part of a much wider crackdown by the powerful right-wing lobby in America. In Florida, a record store owner was fined $2,000 for selling rap band Two Live Crew's album, Nasty As They Wanna Be, and the band themselves were arrested and charged under obscenity laws. Then last year in Cincinnati, an exhibition of work by photographer Robert Mapplethorpe went to trial for obscenity. And Madonna's video, Justify My Love, was banned by MTV But this move backfired on the censors. The ban boosted video sales enormously. Now it's Madonna who's refusing to allow the video to be broadcast. One particularly outspoken victim of the restrictions on the arts is punk rocker Jello Biafra. Formerly lead singer with the Dead Kennedys, Biafra was at the centre of a trial over his Frankenchrist album.
I think the attack on music is part of a much greater attack on the First Amendment of the Constitution of the United States. Anytime an artist has to think twice about what they're going to say or write or film or paint out of fear of reprisals or losing their jobs, that in itself is censorship. And an attack on any artist is an attack on all artists.
No! What did I ever do to you? What did I ever do to you?
I believe if the rock music industry here in America and in England doesn't begin to clean itself up, government will step in and start to clean it up.
If it doesn't clean its act up, would you approve of that censorship?
I would approve, yes, I would. I would approve of going and helping the industry, and if they won't do it themselves, introducing a bill in Congress to begin rating the records. And if we can get it that far, if we can even introduce a bill in the United States Congress to rate rock records, immediately the record industry would rate itself. They wouldn't allow it to go any farther, and that would accomplish our goal.
What we have is McCarthyism with a smiley face, so to speak. Moral McCarthyism now, where people suspected of being, as they put it, soft on porn, soft on drugs, soft on gays, or not believing in fundamentalist Christianity are slowly being hounded out of their jobs and their ability to say what they believe.
People sometimes accuse us of defending artists who might be espousing satanic or racist viewpoints. I really think that's posing the question in the wrong way, because I don't feel that we have any right or desire to defend anybody like that. What we're doing is we're saying that there is a basic right here that's being infringed upon, and that's the right to say whatever it is that you like. Truth emerges out of a healthy clash of ideas. And if we start censoring people because they are so-called satanic adherents, then if we can draw the line there, where might they draw the line next?
I don't think in this world anybody should be told what to do and what to listen to and what not to listen to and where to go. It's up to the individual. If you want to listen to this music, that's fine. If you don't buy it.
But concern over attacks on the arts is not limited to musicians. More surprisingly, from the heart of the British establishment, there is concern that this issue masks a much greater threat to personal freedom.
The idea that rock music is particularly potent, well, the same sort of argument could be made towards anything else. Isn't religion particularly potent? Isn't politics particularly potent? We find people drawing all sorts of irrational or extreme conclusions from every form of literature or artistic expression. If we were to accept the premise of the fundamentalists over rock music, then we'd have to ban every form of literary, cultural, political or social expression. We'd have to ban the Bible.
One of the more unfortunate developments in our televisual age is the power of pressure groups to lobby against the interests of other people because they dislike what other people do. That is tyranny.
Some people might not wish to leap to the defense of overtly satanic bands like Deicide, but what's actually under attack is rock's freedom to provide an alternative. And if you add to that the recent attempts in the US to censor other non-mainstream arts, from rap to Robert Mapplethorpe, then it's possible that we could be witnessing the rise of a new cultural McCarthyism. Or even anarchy. It's about the worst that society has to offer. It's about murder, suicide, rape, injustice, even ritual killings. And according to the critics, the kids that listen to this music are killing themselves and each other because of it. The music is called heavy metal. Industrial Pittsburgh, deep in the heavy metal heartland of America. This is Metallica, the most powerful new metal band in the world. The message is that in a violent and dangerous society, the future for these kids is probably no future at all. And that's what frightens the opponents of heavy metal. This is the real youth culture of the early 90s. According to a national lobby group, the Parents Music Resource Centre, there have been 30 teenage suicides and 150 murders because of heavy metal since 1986.
There is a side effect to marketing your product with a death message. And the risk is that the interpretation will be that death is the product and that the bands want you to kill yourself.
Violence has always been a part of human society. And part of what these bands are rebelling against is the sweeping it under the rug, is the lie that there is no violence.
No band will encourage an audience to kill themselves. Dead people don't buy records. But it is true that suicide is a recurring theme in metal music. In 1987, 4 girls in Bakersfield, New Jersey, gassed themselves in a van. This song, Fade to Black, was found in the car stereo. A few days later, 2 young girls in Illinois copied the suicide. The lyrics to Fade to Black were found on the car seat between them.
Come on, let's be realistic, all right? You have a kid who listens to, like, some music by some band who writes some lyrics. I mean, if at the end of the day they unfortunately would end up, you know, either killing themselves or whatever, then you would suspect that the sort of the source of the problem is something that should hopefully be a lot larger than, you know, some rock band, you know, playing some, you know, open chords on a guitar.
There's been at least, I'd say, 6 or 8 instances where kids come up to us and go, if it wasn't for Fade to Black, I would be dead right now. Said that song made me not kill myself.
Australia is about to feel the new wave of heavy metal. Metallica is coming down to tour in May. And after what you've just seen, a lot of you, especially parents, may be frightened by the results. But what's frightening is not the music, it's the society that created it. According to the United States Department of Justice, 5,000 teenagers commit suicide in this country every year. That works out to about 14 a day. So it's a cop-out just to blame the music. Because it's not like punk. It doesn't come from the vicious inner city. The bands and their fans live here in white middle-class suburbia. They write about death and violence to cut through to an audience already desensitized by the nightly horror on the 6 o'clock news.
I think, you know, different bands have different approaches and there are different things that get people off. You know, if some band wants to sit and write about Satanism or, you know, initiating people to kill themselves or, you know, is writing about, you know, mass murder, all that, I mean, who am I to sit and tell them not to? Because I think at the end of the day, we're talking about some very basic things, which is like, you know, freedom of speech.
The argument about this music goes much deeper than the old argument about the sexuality of Elvis or the anarchy of the Sex Pistols. All over the world, garage bands like these guys in New Jersey are becoming more and more violent as they compete for attention. And never before has death played such a big part in popular culture.
Okay, now some kid goes out and commits suicide, right? Some old guy goes out and commits suicide, right? There's a reason why there's something wrong with this person to commit suicide. It's obvious that maybe they should be in the psycho ward before they stick the knife in their gut. I mean, everybody in the world is not normal.
No matter which way you look at it, metal is about horror. Monsters, ghouls, and angels of destruction leer out of the album covers.
Bands called Megadeth, Abattoir, Slayer and Dead on Arrival bash out songs called Regurgitated Guts and Scream Bloody Gore. And Satanism, with its ready-made imagery, is a perfect source of inspiration. This is the satanic band Venom.
A lot of the satanic murders that have occurred across this country have been kids killing other kids. 17-year-old girls killing 15-year-old girls. 16-year-old boys killing 16 and 17-year-old boys.
Last year, New Jersey detective Paul Hart investigated one of the most brutal murders ever connected to heavy metal Satanism. Tommy Sullivan, just turned 14, murdered his mother and killed himself, with a violence the police described as demonic.
Tommy literally butchered his mother, and I don't think that any of us that were there that evening will ever forget that. There were approximately 40 stab wounds inflicted on his mother from the neck up. His death was as violent.
Can you or do you blame heavy metal music in this situation?
For the week or so before the murder-suicide, he had constantly listened to a song by a group that we weren't able to identify, unfortunately, that dealt with killing your mother.
Now, I've seen the photos of that murder-suicide, and they're the most horrific things I've ever seen. The music alone could never make anyone behave so viciously, but the Tommy Sullivan case is just one of 6 that have occurred here in New Jersey in the last 2 years. 6 teenagers, all heavy metal fans, all under the age of 18, have either gassed, shot or stabbed themselves to death. Now, nobody's going to blame the music alone, but everyone involved believes it's a factor. So the real issue is the music enough to send an unstable kid like Tommy Sullivan over the edge?
It's nice to have a scapegoat, and I think heavy metal is a scapegoat for this. I mean, heavy metal examines these adolescent feelings, examines the feeling of imminent death, examines the feeling that you're victimized, examines all the things that you don't see in sort of happy talk television shows and movies.
Why do we have to have our kids' bodies piling up like bodies in a Shakespearean tragedy before we'll wake up and say, look, that's how they're being programmed?
Lawyers Tim Post and Ken McKenna are seeking several $1 million damages from the English band Judas Priest, following a double shooting in Reno, Nevada 4 years ago. Ray Belknap and James Vance shot themselves after a 6-hour drinking bout. They locked themselves in a room, smoked some marijuana, and listened to the same track over and over again. Belknap died instantly. Vance survived, mutilated. He underwent 159 hours of surgery before he died of a drug overdose in November last year.
The main thing that he kept impressing upon me was how when he would listen to this group's music, it was more than just being amped or psyched up. It actually altered his behavior, altered his thoughts, and he became brainwashed and mesmerized. He just kept impressing upon me how the music made him do it.
I think you have to put in another substance along the way to create mesmerization or hypnotization. But I think it's very unfair for us to be just drawn out from the melting pot of heavy metal and be used as a specific example, as though we're the only band that's capable of killing your children. It's a lot of garbage, you know.
Do you feel in any way responsible?
I can't be held responsible for a kid killing themselves or attempting to kill themselves, because I have no control over the situation.
Tony and Phyllis Vance believe Judas Priest did have control of the situation. They say their son shot himself because a subliminal message, a secret instruction, do it, was hidden in the record. Their lawyers claim the band put it there to make fans buy more albums. And that's the basis of the case before the Nevada courts.
That's what James said to me, that after they was listening to it, he said, one of them, and he didn't say he said it or Ray said it, but he said, let's do it. And there's nothing else that leads me to believe that anything else but that caused their death.
he'd quote the song lyrics just as if they were scriptures out of the Bible. And that would really upset me because it's like, how can you quote that so pronounced like he did? And he knew it. He knew the music had caused him to shoot himself and feel ready to die.
It's a joke. It's a joke, especially related to us. I mean, who in their right minds wants to put a subliminal message, do it, kill yourself, throw yourself off a building? What the hell is the point in doing that? Doesn't make sense to me.
If justice is to be served in this argument, then you have to remember that for every victim of murder or suicide, there are millions of fans who grow up to be ordinary, respectable adults. Is it fair to blame music for the actions of irrational psychotics?
You get a panel of potential killers and suicides and have them listen to every song and see whether that would set them off. I mean, it just becomes insane. It becomes as insane as the activities depicted in the songs.
Heavy metal has taken the position for 10 years that they are under no social responsibility. Zero. And they have not self-policed themselves. They have not done anything to show that they are going to have a social conscience. And they now have to pay a price for what they've done. What I think they should do in the future is develop a social conscience and realize they're dealing with our future of our youth.
How many shots did you hear?